Thank you. There is discussion around the data. Even the latest presentation, we have a lot of stuff around that. We are discussing that actually we are in the age of the data. We can measure anything. It's so easy to actually track the data. But then actually from my experience, when it comes to the reality, especially when you are not a very big company and you are starting the business, it comes to the point when you start to work with the data, when you start to analyze the data, very often actually it seems to be similar to something like that. Okay, it seems to very easy, but then the reality is really different because there are so many different possibilities, there are so many different tools, there are so many different techniques you can use. So I would like to actually share those, my experience from my work. For the last 10 years I work at Google, where right now actually I work with the biggest clients in the CE Greece region, working on their mobile app strategies. So today I would like to share you different stages of the working with the data I saw with the different companies. So the first one is, it's like initial stage. It's actually the situation when usually the company is really focused on the specific cost per acquisition. There is the idea that, okay, once I'm monetizing the specific app, specific business, I have specific number of downloads. Then I have specific revenue that I'm getting from those downloads. So that means that I would say that my average value of the download is like $1. That means that I really don't care what is really between. It's some kind of black box. The people are moving between different devices. The people are moving between the different games. So I'm really caring about this cost of acquisition. And of course, there is a lot of discussion around different conferences, different meetings when we talk about the testing. But again, coming to the reality, I'm sticking to the specific CPA. I'm calling that coming to my pork chop, which means, okay, it's nice to analyze the data, it's nice to work with the data, but at the end of the day, I have many different priorities, so I will actually keep focus on my specific cost of acquisition. I will try to work with different providers to achieve specific CPA. It doesn't matter what kind of users I'm getting. Then we are getting to this second stage, which is the first steps, which is like the company is really starting to work with the data. It's starting to analyze, okay, how really I can really optimize my app based on the data. I see that, okay, on some devices the engagement is better, on some devices the engagement is lower. I'm really trying to understand what kind of errors I'm getting on my app, what kind of problems the users have, or okay, how to really optimize the funnel. Yeah, it's like especially when I'm coming from the first open to the specific level completion. But in this actual level, the main focus is around what are my main problems? How actually I can use the data to remove specific problems, and still actually this black box remains. But then at a specific moment, someone is realizing that actually if I'm saying that the average value of user is $1, it's the average. Average is very misleading. By average, my wife and my daughter are 18 years old. By average, me and Mr. Gates, we earn 6 billion each. So that's the average, because in the average, it's even if you are earning $1 per user, it's coming to the point that most of the users, they spend 20 cents, and one or like some more are spending much more. So then we come to the point, actually, there was even very interesting study published in the beginning of the year that was showing that actually in most of the cases, 17% of the user is actually bringing 85% of the revenue in the apps. So it means that we cannot just really focus on the average. And actually, there is more and more research. It's of course coming that if we take a look at specific average in terms of, for example, the user quality. In this case, we have retention per user per first day, retention of user on the day 30. We see that actually the quality can be really different. Which means that the user of quality of what kind of quality do we really need, and of course, at that specific moment, there is really need. Okay, what kind of tool do I need? What kind of analytics provider should I use? And of course, I'm really encourage you to try out the Firebase if you didn't, because of it's free, unlimited. We'll talk about some challenges it has, of course. That was mentioned in the previous start. But then, having a specific tool, we actually come to the stage number 3, which is growing. And in this second stage, we started to think about the segmentation, how to actually understand the data, how to understand the user, how to differentiate the value between the user. But there is actually really important difference between the stage 2 and then stage 3. It can be that we are using the same tool, but we are using the same technique. It's just in the third stage, in the growing, there is much more focus on the people. I really encourage you, if you are starting the company, if you are like start a company already, and if you need to think, if you are starting to think, okay, what kind of tool should I spend? What kind of tool should I spend on? Like $20,000, $50,000 I have. Spend this on the people who are analyzing the data. Because too often I see that the people are bothering what kind of tool should I use, and then there is nobody really to use the data. Because at the end of the day, from my experience, if I see the people and if I see the companies really using the data, it's just because of the people who are in the company who really understand the data, who really know how to read the data. So once you have such analytics hero, you can really start to dig deep and really start to understand the data. And you really start to really get the actions based on the data. Coming from the simple ones, like, for example, we have the simple app. In this case, we have on the opening app, we have on the opening screen, we have a few promotions. So we are opening the app and we have the specific promotions, and the flow is that the user see the products, he clicks the specific product, and then he has the encouragement to actually create the account or login, because after that screen he requires specific action. And then of course at the same time he can go through this flow, but at the same time, if he doesn't like this login, he can go to the other place of the app. He can try to look for something and so on. And looking at the data, it's actually it looks like quite simple. We have the featured products. Yes, this is this screen, and then we have that the people actually most of the people are going to the menu, which means that in this case the people see the specific product, like the featured products, and then actually they go directly to the menu, which means that actually the data shows that actually those featured products are not really useful at all. The people see them and then just go directly to the menu. But then actually we start to really understand the data, because when we start to segment the user, because even very simple segmentation by new versus returning users is actually showing that if you are, that's the average data, but if you are new user, then actually your flow is that you see the featured products, then you see the item, and then you see the authentication. And then if you are returning users, that for you actually most of the flow is that you will see the featured products, and then you go to the menu, which means that even such simple segmentations giving us the idea, the action, okay, we should really change the behavior of the app based on this simple metric. Is the user the first time on the app versus he was in the past? So This is the real power around the data. It's actionability, which is coming from the analysis, which is coming from the specific data and the tool. But whenever you talk about whenever you are talking about any data analysis and app analytics, make sure you are not finishing in this part. You are not finishing the discussion around what kind of tool I'm using, what kind of events I'm tracking, because that's much more important. And then with that, you can go even further, saying, okay, what I want to even understand this topic much more. Like coming, okay, I see this simple information about my users. In this case, it's coming from Firebase, one of the app using Firebase. I see that, okay, if I'm looking at the audience name, like all users, 75% of the users are female, 25 are male. But then when I'm comparing with the people who are buying, that's a totally different setup. I see that actually majority of the people who are buying are actually female. It's much more female. And then it's actually majority of the audience is actually all audience. So again, it's not about average user. It's about specific user who has much higher probability to spend on the app. It can go further. Another example, we have two groups, and in this case, we have the specific average revenue per user and average revenue per paid user. Very, very, very interesting data. You see that actually, if I'm looking at average revenue per user for those two groups, it's actually very similar. It's here we have 80 cents, we have $1. But average value per paid user, is actually almost 3 times higher, which means that actually the difference between the average user and average paid user for those audiences are totally different. Which means that in this group, if somebody is buying, he's buying for much more than in this older group. So it's not about the difference between the number of people who pay, but the average value of order we are seeing. And then, of course, different other insights we can get from the data, like sometimes not obvious ones. We see that in this case, if I'm looking at the ages of the people who are in that specific age, in this case, we have those who are actually spending the highest amount of money in the app. I see that some of the interests are very obvious, like the games, but some of them are not very obvious, like the weather. Again, it's giving me very good insights where I should look for those people. So in this case, app analytics really is about finding those different correlations. What are actually those points that really make those people much higher, to have much higher probability to spend the other ones? It's about specific group, specific behavior, specific event. What is the difference between the average user and the user who has a specific, very, very high value for us? What is this? Where actually is looking? Where we should look for this correlation? Coming from the simple ones, like in this case, I have the very easy segmentation, all users versus the people who added the product to the wish list. And of course, I see that probability to convert for such people is much higher, which means that such event is pretty good indicator that somebody is actually having pretty good value for me. So it's actually, if I have the specific app, it's good actually to make sure that people are adding those products to the wish list. And because right now it's so easy to track those different moments, those events, especially with different tools like Firebase, I really encourage you to do it. Especially that even in Firebase, it's very easy to actually move from this specific behavior, which is showing the different value, this average value of the user, to conversion, that specific event we are focusing on. And actually, with this new universal app campaigns coming from Google, we actually can use those high-value events to focus on in our acquisition campaigns. which is, I think, really great deal. And actually, we have more and more example of companies that they're doing that very successfully. This very successful company from France that actually is dating app. And based on the data, they really understood that actually, if we have the people who are spending in our app, we see the highest value of the people who are actually sending the charms. It's like invitation to specific invitation to the other person. And even if those charms are free, at first, once somebody sends the first charm, it's actually unblocking this usage of the app. If somebody is actually using this charm for the first time, he has much higher probability to actually have really high engagement in the app. And then there is a really limited number of the free charms. So once somebody is using for the first time and has much higher probability to use it in the future, it's much higher probability that actually he will spend on those charms. So based on that, they used actually those charms events as the prerequisition to the acquisition campaigns using actually universal app campaigns. So in their universal app campaigns, they focus on the high value users. So, and then once they use those universal app campaigns, they actually increase really their revenue coming from the acquisition. And the other case study coming from Voodoo, and actually in this case is the game when they actually focus on the people who were coming for the second time to the app. And the next one, when actually it was the second day, come back to the app. So there are those specific events that really make us actually give much higher chance for the company to grow. And then actually we are coming to this mature stage. And where actually this mature stage, when actually we're really able, based on the data, to see which of those events are really the most important for us. That's actually the real example of the pretty big game from Poland I work with. And they had the challenge, because on one side they have really successful business, but on the other hand, they saw those events that were quite important for them, but what is actually, which is good, and what is not good, they actually were not really able to say which of those events are most important for them. So in the acquisition campaigns, they try to fulfill the needs all of those KPIs. They try to achieve all those KPIs in the same way, which means they were not really able to distinguish from my growth strategy. Is it important? Is this actually, this registration is actually more important event than the achieving to the first level or fifth level or not? So actually they try to have the campaigns with all those different KPIs. Because they were not really able which one is actually most important. Because if we have those high value events, some of them are easy to track, but that's much more difficult to decide. Because if we just rely on correlation, we can actually get to not very good insight and good decision as well. This is actually a very interesting example. This is actually showing there's really strong correlation between the US spending on science, space and technology and the people who actually did suicide. Or the correlation between the people who were drowning in the pool versus the films that Nicolas Cage appeared in. So the correlation in the data is important, but correlation doesn't mean causality, exactly, causation. That's the mature stage when the company is really able to take a look at those different events that are important in my game, in the company, and say, which of them is really my growth engine? And actually, that comes usually from the testing, unfortunately. It's like, I really like the saying, in God we believe, everything else we need to test. And that testing is actually giving us really the information, what is really this growth engine for our company. And that's very interesting and very famous case coming from Facebook, when they really, of course, because the big company, they analyzed many different events they had in the apps, in the business. They were really trying to understand, okay, what is really the single event that has actually the biggest impact on my business? It is like the second day login, it's the person who added the first post, it's the person who had a few visits during the few days. No, based on it's the number of photos added. It was not actually none of them. The most important, based on the data, the most important event they really was giving the added value to the business was actually adding 7 friends in 10 days. And actually, the history is really showing, the history of the successful companies is showing that they were really trying to find this one or like 2 most important events that are really showing the biggest added value to the business. That so-called aha moment. That moment really we see that's like the most important for my business. And then once you have that, of course it's much easier to focus on this acquisition strategies, whatever kind of acquisition strategy you have. And then of course we can get to the mature plus point, which is focusing on those events, adding that to that. Actually, we are adding much more based on the personalization, that we are actually able really to understand from the data the same user. It's not average. That actually we can get to the point that actually we see that if we are trying to find those moments that can be different for different people. So that actually, based on our data, we can really decide that actually there are the people who have much higher probability to have specific event, and then they start to spend more, versus in some cases the people who are very promotion oriented. So in this case, it's much better actually to increase the monetization via specific personalized or upselling offers. And of course, those different strategies, it's easier and easier to do, having some tools for that, like even Firebase is actually giving very interesting features for free, like push notifications, invites. That is actually can help to grow the business. And then always after my presentation, I would like to give like some kind of ideas for the short, middle, and the long term. So for the short, please, starting from today, let's make sure you understand the CPA is not enough. Cost per download is not enough. Whatever you are doing, please just forget about just cost of the download, because average is not enough today. Then start to segment the users. Try to segment them by different dimensions, and again, it's not really all about the specific tool. It's about the specific ideas you have, and then try to find your growth engine. And just as actually at the end of my presentation, I always like to leave you with some additional ideas. So I will actually give you a short story. I love stories. So there is the story about the desert pig. Happy desert pig, which is actually very happy because it's very fast. It has just only one enemy, which is the lion. And the desert pig is actually very happy because it's very fast. So he can really run away from the lion. But there is one challenge. The desert pig actually has very little and short memory. So when the desert pig sees the lion, it knows that it needs running, and it runs away. But then he forgets about that. And then when he sees it again, it's actually it's not running away, so it's eaten. And why I'm saying that story? What actually has to do with marketing, with apps? I think it's very in similar way actually we're behaving attending such a conference. It's like if we see different presentation, different case studies, different examples, we remember, okay, there are some competitors out there. There are some companies that are having really great strategies. So I need to do something. I need to implement it. I need to do something based on that. But then we are coming back to the office. There are different priorities. There are different things to do, and we actually forget to do action based on those presentation based on those conferences. So I really encourage you to take a look at the insights Mike Link and me were giving to you, and really make sure that you are not forgetting that the lions are out there, and it's really good to maybe put some insights from them. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time. I hope it was useful. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yes?
So, Google Play has been recently...
And actually, at first, maybe I can add something to this Google Analytics versus the Firebase. I think that's the case coming from the point that Firebase is actually fully focused on apps. And again, it's not fully functional yet. I think from I see like the companies using today, from segmentations, they are rather still using Google Analytics. For acquisition, they're using Firebase. So in this case, for example, the events are done via Firebase, but very often those insights for those events are taken from Google Analytics.
So my question is, recently, well, in the past year or so, Google Play has added multiple testing, A/B testing capabilities to the Play Store. So you can test descriptions, you can test icons, screenshots, stuff like that. One of the things that we are missing, and I think it has quite an impact, is you can specify different in-app purchase prices for different countries, right? Because they have different spending power. But we can't really test those. We have no way of knowing whether this purchase should be $3 or $9 or 50 cents in India, let's say. Is there any plans to implement this A/B testing into in-app purchase pricing from the Play Store dashboard?
In this case, I cannot say anything on behalf of our colleagues from Play Store. In this case, what is really the strategy for the app is really focus on Firebase. So actually make sure that all those different features are sooner or later available in Firebase. So in this case, I would expect to. I know it's quite important part. It's mentioned quite often, but I would expect to have it much sooner in Firebase versus in Google Play.
Because this is, this would benefit both the developers and Google, given that it would maximize the revenue. If the price is not right.
Yeah, but again, in this case, rather ideas for that kind of testing. Again, I would expect much more often in Firebase, like remote config and all those different tools that are used less or more often for the testing, rather in Google Play. But of course, I cannot say never.
Thank you.
Yes.
Google Analytics provides, I believe, 20 custom dimensions, Firebase 25. But while Google Analytics allows through some enterprise subscriptions increase the amount of custom dimensions available, Firebase not only doesn't provide this way, also doesn't allow deleters when they use these 25 slots.
Yes, but it's not really actually It's not really, in this case, if we're talking about Firebase and Google Analytics, not really comparing apple to apple, yeah. Because if you are thinking about custom dimension, I would say that in this case, even user properties are actually, they are much more similar to the custom dimension that what you are mentioning, yeah. So, and then a lot of stuff that actually could be done even via events, which are actually 500 Firebase as well, yeah?
I'm just saying that 20 is not enough, at least for me.
Yeah, but in this case, like the future for the like app analytics is really to for the Google is really to focus on Firebase, yeah. So and that's why in this case there will be much more stuff added to Firebase rather than Google Analytics in terms especially of app analytics, because of course there are like advantages and disadvantages of the of those tools. But one of the biggest disadvantages that was mentioned by developers in terms of Google Analytics was sampling, yeah? That's sampling, and then those limits in terms of the 10 millions of hits per month, which is of course not enough for many apps. So that's why like all different segmentation features that are still sometimes not available in Firebase, they will be going there instead of just trying to improve Google Analytics, which I would say from the beginning was not really app-centric, which means that even it had some additional features versus regular Google Analytics, it still was not enough for developers, and actually that was the feedback coming from developers, that actually it's not the tool that is really focused on the developer.